Scientists say that dogs have short-term memories that can last about 2 minutes. I kind of find that to be a bit of bullcrap, but I guess a lot of that has to work for this book's story to turn out the way it did. Hello and welcome to another session of Therapy and Panels. So what happens when you mix in the Disney characters like the Lady and the Tramp dogs and 101 Dalmatians into the world of something like Silence of the Lambs? You get Stray Dogs. Created by Tony Fleeks and art by Trish Forstner, the idea for this story came when Tony was watching a show which had a serial killer in it. He walked out of the room for a moment, and when he returned, the killer just randomly had a dog with him, thinking, what, did the killer take the person's dog? Yep, that's all there was to it. Now, before I start getting into my depression on how I can't think of something like that so easily, let's go ahead and get to reviewing Stray Dogs. I am reading from the trade, but I really love the cover for this, with the color schemes and the shadows for the darkness of the slightly open door to the unknown, and our scared little puppy here to discover it. It really builds suspense, for me at least, and also, for me personally, some anxiety. We begin at a vet's office where a Papillion named Sophie is getting her shots. Our owner worries that Sophie will hold a grudge, but the vet reassures her that dogs don't hold grudges the way humans do. Yet she will always recognize the treat bag being opened. Later, Sophie wakes up in a strange house with a man she doesn't know who leaves her with 8 other dogs who rush her like it's a meet and greet at the dog park. A shepherd mix named Rusty pulls her aside and introduces everyone and gives a tour of the place, which is decorated with taxidermy animals. When Sophie gets scared and has an accident, Rusty comforts her, saying the master won't abandon her like her last owner. A real sweet sentiment if you can ignore the moose heads watching. The man later wraps Sophie in a red scarf, and as soon as she sniffs it, she remembers it belonged to her owner, which the man killed using that same scarf. Sophie tries to tell the other dogs, but they don't believe her, especially the hound named Earl. He has the best response with this, like, I can smell anything, and he doesn't smell like a killer. Like, what exactly does a killer smell like, I wonder? That night, Sophie dreams of her owner's death until Rusty wakes her up to say he believes her story and agrees to help, but is shocked when Sophie has no idea what he's talking about. Rusty gets the idea to give Sophie the scarf again, which brings back her memories. During breakfast, the two sneak into the master's private room, which is filled with women's clothes and photos. Okay, starting to get a red flag here. When the man returns, Sophie manages to hide in the box while Rusty wrecks the living room for a distraction, giving her enough time to escape, but he ends up locked in shed for his bad behavior. Later in the day, one of the dogs named Aldo says that the man met a new lady today, and when shown a picture, an Alaskan Malamute named Roxanne recognizes her as her old owner. I guess you could say everyone's starting to connect the leashes. I'm sorry, I'll throw myself out. That night, the man puts the dogs out, and Roxanne smells something under the porch, revealing a secret door. Her and a few of the dogs enter the door and find dirt piles revealed to be graves with remains, one having the shirt giving Victor the Dalmatian memories of his old owner. The man comes outside to get the dogs as they all hide in the ditches, and later on inside, Victor recalls from his past owner about calling for help and manages to get to the phone and somehow uses it. Proof that animals are 1,000 times smarter than any human in a horror movie. Sadly, however, the dog Earl decides to snitch, and after the man convinces the operator it was an accident, takes Victor outside and is heard outside just a gunshot. I am going off of Pokemon rules here and say that he only fainted and is unable to battle. You just gotta take him to the Pokemon Center. The next morning, everyone is in a panic as the man didn't even bother feeding the dogs, and after a heated argument with Earl, still in denial, Sophie reveals to the rest of the group that he told on Victor, earning the mistrust of the group as they go to find what happened to Victor. And I am not going to show you the next few panels because what the heck, man? And it gives me personal feelings since I myself was a Dalmatian owner when I was younger. They all begin to panic and try everything they can to escape, but are unable to dig or climb, and the house is locked up tight. Meanwhile, Earl is finally coming to his senses, remembering his previous owners, and enters the private room, discovering the taxidermied heads of Victor and other dogs he grew up with. The man loads a shotgun, demanding Earl to leave, but he has had enough and attacks the man. The giant masked thief named Imogen tackles the guy and Earl manages to escape, breaking through the windows, allowing everyone to get out. Sophie wants to retrieve the red scarf, wanting to remember, but ends up biting the man in the leg to prevent him from hurting anybody. In order to get someone to notice, Earl runs into oncoming traffic, causing a collision, and dies from his injuries. A moment of silence, everybody, for Earl. The man himself finally dies from the injuries he suffered from Earl earlier, and later on the police arrive, discovering the bodies, and this nightmare is finally over. We then cut to 2 months later, as it is revealed that Sophie was adopted by new owners, now named Trudy, and enjoying a day at the park, and runs into Rusty. Sadly, it seems that they don't exactly remember each other or the events that they shared together. As her new owners call for her, she hesitates for a moment, but quickly runs off, finally having the happy ending she's deserved. Perhaps memories don't fully fade away at all, it seems. So that was Stray Dogs, and from my diagnosis, it was a pretty good read. It is a clever mashup of genres with the artwork that gives you a feeling of the classic artwork from Disney and Don Bluth films. Each dog is distinct in personality and expressive faces. The storytelling is tight, never wasting a panel or line of dialogue. The pacing feels cinematic with moments of silence and stillness that amplify the fear. There's also a surprising amount of emotional depth. You feel the innocence of the dogs clashing with the sinister world they've been thrown into, and it hurts in the best way possible, if that makes any sense. I personally have 2 things to critique on. One being I felt the ending was a bit abrupt, with me wanting a bit more time to process everything that happened. 2, while I know this is more on the perspective of the dogs, I wish we got more info on why the man did this. Because the outside of what I had to guess, it seems he did this mostly because women rejected him and the dogs were just a sick trophy. And with that, that is the end of today's session. Thank you all for attending. If you liked the video, be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, I am the Super Guru, wishing you all a happy Halloween.